Around the Bead podcast, tire talk for trucking, mining, agriculture, and more. Your home for fleet solutions, aiming to inform, pioneer, and entertain the tire world and connected industries. Sponsored by East Bay Tire, keeping essential industries moving forward.
Good day and welcome back to Around the Bead podcast. I am your host, Joseph Pahanik, and I am joined as part of our fleet series with ROI Rob to talk about one of my favorite topics, garbage, the waste business, and the tires that keep it rolling. Rob, you ready to kick the tires?
Absolutely. Let's roll.
So I was so pumped about this episode. I was thinking about you in the waste business, and one of the things that is really unique for you, when I think of all the guys that I know that sell tires, that consult on tires, that are advising fleets, is you do it across the board. And what I mean by that is it's brands, Continental, Goodyear, Bandag, MRT, Michelin, Bridgestone. You have all the experience on the brands, but it's not just the truck piece of waste. You also do the landfill piece, the transfer stations. You're a soup to nuts, as they would call it, waste guy.
Absolutely.
Not by design, but life brought you that way.
Yeah, just experience and just took me in that direction.
And what I love about it is every time I talk to you about it, it seems like you're still learning. You're still willing to say, hey, I learned this about this piece of the business, you know, how this tire is functioning in this application. You've had a really open mind this whole time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So today, at least if this goes over, we can split it. But let's start with the garbage truck side, right? For people out there, civilians outside the tire world who are just thinking about what are we talking about? It's the trucks that are coming to pick up your garbage every day. What's a garbage fleet size? What does it do? You know, give us the basics.
Sure. And so you got a multitude of options there, right? So sizes are anywhere from typically 30 trucks to 300 trucks, right? In
300
one
truck,
location.
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. 30 to 300. It just depends and varies per location. Like in San Francisco, you've got a huge fleet, right?
Right.
Versus in
Major metro
Modesto,
areas,
California, you may have 30 trucks, right?
Okay.
So,
but say median 60, 75, somewhere in there?
Yeah,
Okay.
somewhere in there is a good number. And then you kind of got, I'll call it 4 different styles of trucks for the most part, right? You've got a front loader.
Yeah.
You've got a side loader.
Yeah.
You've got a rear loader. And you got a roll-off truck.
Okay.
That's kind of your bread and butter for every fleet is going to have some quantity of each of those for the most part.
We got to get editors to get pictures of these on the show.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, different size fleets, pretty standard entire size, and what they do, you'll have, distance traveled with these trucks can be, some will go out and leave their yard or their home site and spin U-turns in cul-de-sacs all day long and never go over 30 miles on a day or something like that, right?
Yep.
Where you'll have others in more of your rural areas where they're going to drive 15 miles, 20 miles till their first stop, and then they're going to make 4 on that road and then 5 miles to the next. So they could put 150 miles on in a day, right? So
I guess I never really considered there to be that much variation. I mean, I really thought you'd come in and say, hey, they run 120 miles a day, 250 miles a day. It is what it is, same stuff. But there is some variation out there.
Yeah, there is some variation. Now, per location, most of the trucks in a location are going to do very similar routes.
Yeah.
Right? Same truck's going to pretty much go on the same route every day, but they'll have it's pretty similar to what they do.
Is fuel economy a consideration on these trucks? I mean, and what about the truck brands? I'm skipping ahead here. What about the truck brands? Are they all running Freightliner? Are they all running a certain type of brand?
No, you've got Peterbilt, you've got Autocar. Battle is a new brand out there.
Yeah. Where's Battle made?
Honestly,
brand?
I don't know. I'm just starting to see them more and more into the fleets.
Are they hydrogen? Are they electric? Are they tapping that kind of zero emission market?
We're getting there. Natural gas is bigger and bigger with them. Hydrogen's coming. Electric still isn't really feasible in the garbage truck world.
Yeah. I would think it would be. I mean, it's lower miles than line haul, right? And they come back to the same base every day so they can charge overnight. They're running daytime. Is there nighttime garbage?
No, not usually. Certain fleets will have different stuff. Like they'll pick up in commercial areas and some nighttime stuff. But I had one fleet.
I would not want that job.
No.
Like garbage truck driver, commercial areas, middle of the night.
No, picking up the back
dumpster?
alleys of restaurants, big dumpsters.
No, I'm not signing up for that.
Yeah, probably not the funnest job.
Yeah, that's a tough dude right there.
Yeah. The electric thing is interesting because you can't not run your garbage truck during a day, right? So, and the amount of time it takes to charge those batteries, and the batteries are heavier, which means the truck can carry less. So I had one fleet pretty close to us suggest that they would need to own 3 times as many trucks as they do now in order to operate with electric. Yeah.
That's not feasible.
No.
I mean, not with the way these city contracts are.
No, and imagine how much a new electric truck is going to cost versus your standard diesel or natural gas truck, right?
Yeah.
So, and then input charging stations, and gosh, it'll become a mess.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah,
okay.
that's another world.
Okay. So fuel economy, is it a consideration? Is wear more of a concern, or tire damage? I mean, that seems to come up time to time. That, hey, my drivers are going to curb tires, and what's the priorities for a waste fleet?
I would say the priorities is wear, right? So a waste fleet fuel is not the priority because they scrub the rubber off of the tire before it has a chance to really wear out. And the tires that go on are designed to handle scrub, not to handle, hundreds of miles at 60 miles an hour, right? Yeah. So yeah, fuel ranks pretty low as far as the conversations we're having with a fleet. Damage ranks up high. The tire has to have the ability to handle some curb damage, right? And then we retread a lot in those fleets. And how does the retread handle that lateral scrub of that tire turning all day long? So
you said a lot there that I want to dig into. Curb damage. I mean, I still don't hear a lot of garbage truck breakdowns. So is that something that's not seen? Is that just a perception of mine that isn't true? I mean, how often does a garbage truck have an ERS call?
They'll have quite a few ERS calls. One of the big differences in the garbage industry is a lot of the fleets have gone to their own tire techs and their own service trucks.
Okay.
So what we're providing them is either loose tires delivered to them, or we're providing a mounted wheel program where they have mounted on their own service truck. So they're handling that on their own.
Right.
So we're not getting ERS calls for them all day long. Certain fleets we are. We have one fleet that runs, I guess, and I didn't explain this when I said the different kinds of trucks, but it's the transfer portion of it.
Yeah.
So they go from the transfer station to the landfill, and those are a tractor and trailer.
Yeah.
We probably do... Gosh, I would say we do at least one ERS event for them per week going to the landfill. It could be 2 per week, but that happens quite a bit, the units that are going actually into the landfill.
So let's come back to that when we talk about Duraseal and like flat proofing solutions. You mentioned retreading. Retreading is probably more prevalent in garbage than any other fleet in the U.S.
Yeah, absolutely.
What kind of wear mileage wise are we seeing on retreads and the new steers? Give us a range.
So new steers, and I'm going to talk to a couple majors because it's where we have the most data right now. Anywhere's between, say, 8,000 miles to 13,000 miles on a new steer. Retreads.
Say that one more time.
8,000 miles.
Yeah.
To 13,000 miles.
Is what they get on a steer tire?
Yes.
Woof.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then on the drive application in a retread,
That's still, I mean, that seems low, but then at the same token, I'm saying to myself, well, 5,000 extra miles, if you're averaging 8 and you get 5,000 extra miles, that's like 60 points plus
yeah,
improvement. That's huge.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So, and then you step it over to your drive position and your retreads.
Yeah.
Again, anywhere in that 8,500 mile range to the 12,000 mile range is typically what we're seeing. 13,000 miles. It's kind of similar. It's weird. And then, believe it or not, if you take that new tire off the steer and step it back to the drive, well, I guess it's easy to believe, it gets significantly less wear, right? The torque and the pressure on it.
I see. I feel like on the last data set that you sent me, the drive tires were substantially less than the steer tires in terms of wear, like 20%, 30%, somewhere in there. Have you ever tested a new drive tire in the drive position?
Yes.
Yeah. How's it work?
It actually it doesn't perform as well as the retread does in the drive position.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's compounding, maybe. So that steer tire, is constantly all that weight pushing down in the way they design it to handle that weight. I think it's just designed, the rubber that's meeting the road is designed different to handle the characteristics of the job.
Let me identify this for the audience. So you got a Bridgestone or Michelin XZUS is the waist tire. The Bridgestone is the 860.
M870 now.
870 now. Okay. So if you took an 870 or an XZUS and you slap that on the drive, you're saying from a mileage standpoint, you get more out of the retread than you would the new tire?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
in a
shocking
fleet
to
we
me.
just tested, they were averaging with the Michelin retread
Per 30 second.
per 30 second. Yeah.
Okay, but you're going to get less 30 seconds out of a retread, right? And you're going to pull that way sooner than you are a new tire.
No.
No?
So on a steer axle, typically you're pulling the tires sooner than you are on a drive axle because your legal limit is taller on a steer axle, right? So we want to pull them by 6:30 seconds on a steer axle.
Yeah.
And we want to run them down to 4, and they can run them to 2, but typically around 4 on a drive axle.
Seems like a bunch of rubber wasted, like pulling these things as soon as they are. I mean, that's nuts because you only have, 22, 30 seconds?
Mm-hmm.
So you leave 30 seconds on the table, that's a little less than 20 points, 18 points?
Yep, and the big factor of that is casing life, right? So that original tire, when it's worn out, becomes a casing, and we can retread that casing. And data and studies have shown that the more preventative we can be with damaging that casing, the better life it'll have for the retreading future of it.
No, I get it,
So-
and that's one of my major criticisms of retreading as a whole. I mean, we supply retreads,
Yeah,
right? That's
absolutely.
a substantial part of my business, my life. But when I look at it from a fleet perspective, I go, okay, well, I'm pulling this stuff. It says in the book that you can get 7, 10 retreads. It says that you can wear it all the way out, and you're doing all this forecasting based off of wearing all the tread, but you don't. You end up, people are pulling them at higher and higher levels because they don't want to lose a casing, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So my theory is that retreading really started in waste because they wanted the cheapest possible option. They were concerned about curbing the tires. What do you think about that perspective? And it's evolved quite a bit now, but you think that's how it initially started?
Yeah, I would say so, and I think a lot of it has to do with tires being they kind of can destroy tires if they're not careful.
Right.
So that leads to the cheapest option, right? Like, hey, we're gonna ruin them anyway. How do we get this cheaper, right?
Yeah.
How do we save money on it?
Plus, they're not going at high speeds most of the time, so they don't have that liability that many fleets face when they have retreads.
Yeah.
What about air pressure and maintenance? I mean, when you look at a waste fleet versus any other fleet out there, better, worse, same, indifferent, unknown, from a maintenance perspective?
From a maintenance perspective, it's really company situational, right?
Yeah.
And how they have their techs perform. It has the ability to actually be worse because of the environments they're in, right? And the amount of flats that can incur regionally, in and out of landfills, in and out of transfer stations where garbage is dumped, right?
Yeah.
But the attention to detail on them has become so great just because of their ability to destroy tires so easily that I feel like they do a pretty good job of maintaining it.
Yeah. Okay. So your feeling is garbage fleet is better maintained from an air pressure perspective than the average of all fleets.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Mixed service tires, the two models that we mentioned, those are in those regional urban applications. I feel like they're not as common in other applications, but would perform well. It's just that all position is such an economical tire that why pay the premium for an XZUS or 870 or any other mixed service that's provided by hundreds of other tire brands out there.
Absolutely.
You think it's underutilized tread?
Yeah, I think it has its place. It definitely could do well in other environments. You start to look at how they build it as well, widths, right? So the majority of the waste industry is on the tire size is a 315 ADR 22.5.
Yep.
So the retread companies build width of retread to put on that tire, and they won't build like an XZUS. And again, it's underutilized.
Yeah.
For some of the smaller, narrower applications, a Low Pro 22 or an 11R22, right?
Sure.
So some of that's pretty interesting and would serve you would just immediately think an XZUS in a grocery fleet would be amazing, right? They're scrubbing in and out of.
Yeah, that's where I'm going with this. I'm like, yeah.
So, but the size tire, the way they build the trucks and what's standard just is not the same.
Sure. I also think retreading's got to play a component in that, they're building these casings for retreading for waste.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not retreading, then that simply doesn't pencil to overpay for the quote unquote casing.
Absolutely.
Which brings up a topic I want to go through is casings in waste, right? You buy 2 new steer tires and you're running all retreads on the rest of your axles. You're not going to generate enough casings.
Correct.
Okay. Used tires where the core, so to speak, can be used for retreading. And you're not going to generate enough to feed your fleet. You eventually have to buy new tires to run on drive axles, or you have to buy cap and casing, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
And then you factor in damaged tires. I haven't seen a lot of it. Situations where the repairs are just too expensive.
Yep.
I would think that's with the way retread repairs are skyrocketing right now. Fleet's got to be saying, hey, I'm not going to spend $100 on freaking repairs.
Yeah.
Right. I still see it happening, but I mean, that's where I would want to advise fleets, hey, consider that before you just run it through the cap shop. But I guess at the end of the day, how do you manage that supply? Because that tracking of you're always going to run short on casings in order to retread.
Yeah, and it's a constant battle for us because we have to maintain relationships with what we call casing jockeys in the world, guys. That's what they do is they just hunt for companies that aren't retreading and purchasing casings. And then on the other side, internally, what we're doing for the fleets is we have to track it's a casing management system. We have to understand where they're at in their inventory levels at all times to know what they're going to need to buy next.
Well, and that's my point. I'm trying to put myself in the fleet manager role. I can't imagine, on top of everything else I'm doing, trying to consider, okay, where are my casings? Are they in retread? Are they not? Are they in my fleet? How many years in are they? How many are going to have to get pulled in the next couple of months? How many are going to not make it through the cap shop? I respect giving myself some credence here. I think I would blow that up in like 3 months where I'd go, okay, holy smokes, all of a sudden I need a bunch of new tires. I need a bunch of caps.
How do I get consistent?
I need an answer. I'm calling up Rob. Somebody help me. I need to get trucks out on the road. And I didn't realize that 50% of my fleet had 7-year-old casings that I'm pulling from service.
Yeah. Yeah, and think about it. Your cost of a recap, just for a round number, let's say it's $300, and then you add a casing to it, and now it's $450, right? So last month you bought all your own retreads, and now this month, I mean, your budget is kind of doing this thing if it's not super monitored and really dialed in.
Or another one. Okay, I'm spending $300 for the retread, plus time, effort, energy, et cetera, et cetera. Then I'm gonna spend $80 worth of repairs, and then that casing is at 7 years.
And
why would I not just buy? And then I'm not able to make that decision unless that's right in front of me. That's got to be incredibly hard. But there's savings there, right?
Yeah, there absolutely is. So, and then you take that's on its 5th retread, and it's 7 years old, and now it's got, $400 worth of repairs in it, and it doesn't live the life of that tread because the casing fails, right? It's out of warranty at this point. You've lost it. It can be messy. It really can be. It's a tough one. And it's kind of something we've started talking to fleets about and trying to understand what the true total cost of ownership is. But the mindset is you got to retread. It's cheaper. It saves money, right? So,
well, it's a process thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you've heard me say this before. Retreading is to big fleet what Salesforce is to big corp.
Yeah.
It made sense in the beginning, but now it's this huge bureaucracy within. Everybody's built processes around it. Actual sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your waste fleet, from my notes, and this is going to be a little old school, says that you're going to pull that thing after 8 years, that you're trying to get 7+ retreads out of it, and you're trying to wear that thing down to no more than 230 seconds, but get as close to that as possible. What's the reality in the waste world today?
The reality is probably closer to 5 retreads.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
The reality on wear is I rarely see a tire going into the retread plant under 430 seconds. A lot of them are closer to 730 seconds.
And I've heard guys, you've taken me around to yards, and guys said, yeah, I pull them at 7.
Yeah. So when they kind of break it down, they kind of understand that what a mechanic or a tire guy in the industry at a waste fleet makes an hour now, if they've got that truck in the shop and they're doing brakes on it or any number of standard maintenance on it, and that tire's at 7, what it costs them to then put that truck back out into the fleet and bring it back in 3 weeks later when they're at 530 seconds and change those tires, it just isn't worth it, right? It doesn't make the financial sense to them. So that's kind of part of it. And then obviously, like we talked about, they want to catch the tire in time to maintain that casing because they need to get 5 to 7 retreads out of it, right? So it all factors into it, and it's pretty interesting and something that we truly would like to bring more awareness to these fleets with the data that we're doing with our data team.
Yeah. I like this. I mean, I bet your data team is like pushing all cylinders against this because you can really see some gains for them.
Yeah.
And I like how much maintenance is involved, meaning they have full-time people, right? They're bringing that in. I bet mismatched duels is very rare, right? You got time. It's in the shop. You're swapping them. You're matching them out.
Yeah.
What about mounted wheel programs? Are they running mounted wheel? And for the listeners out there, mounted wheel program is where you're not mounting a tire on the wheel when that tire is worn out or emergency scenario. You have an inventory of mounted tires and wheels, so that for whatever reason you want to swap them out, you're not putting them in a cage, you're not airing them, you're just spinning them on and off.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of them have the mounted wheel, and what we do is we even sort them in there where we keep their inventory by inners and outers on wheels, clean wheels, dirty wheels, stuff like that, right? So we make it really simple for a tire tech or a mechanic to go grab a set and go slap it on. Typically when they're changing, they'll a lot of times just do an axle if they're doing it, right? And then if it was slightly mismatched or something, they'll save those as spares and match them up later.
Yeah.
So that is done pretty well in the garbage fleets. Most guys are really good at keeping them matched up. We don't see a lot of mismatched stuff.
Now, brand-wise, retread-wise, what are you tracking now? Bridgestone Bandag obviously being the biggest player in waste with Republic Services and waste management contracts. Michelin and Goodyear still seem to be heavy in certain regions, in certain fleets, and have top-performing products. What are you tracking? Is Continental in play?
Yeah, Continental is in play. We obviously do track the most of Michelin and Bridgestone.
Yeah.
Goodyear in our region is not as relevant at right now.
Yeah.
It feels like Michelin and Bridgestone have more of the contracts across the board. We are tracking some Goodyears and looking at those. We're tracking some Continental in the steer application. Continental hasn't really had a position in the retread application for us to look at.
Yeah.
But definitely in the new tire application. And there's some others coming to market a little bit more and more. Toyo has a tire. Probably everybody has a tire, but what
Right.
you're really seeing in the market.
But it's the combination of the tire and the retread that gives them the full solution, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And on a Goodyear side, going to them, I want to talk about Duraseal. At one point, there was a trend towards Duraseal in waste.
Yeah.
Duraseal being this inner liner that they produce in certain tires. You see them a lot in government emergency services. But I'm seeing less and less of it in waste. Are you seeing the same? If so, why?
I hardly see it at all in waste anymore.
Yeah.
And the big reason is because retreading is so dominant. And it's a scary item to retread with the chemical inside that a Bandag and a Michelin retread plant won't retread a Duraseal.
I see. So you have limited options on retreading.
Yeah, it really handcuffs you. You have to go back to the Goodyear retreader to get it taken care of.
So that's a component I didn't really consider. The first thing that came to mind is the premium on the tire and then the ERS breakdowns. So I would assume a Duraseal is $50, $75 more tire, maybe $100 on a 315.
Yeah, it's definitely more.
You do that across an entire truck, let alone across an entire fleet. And how many breakdowns do you have per year in a waste truck?
Yeah, if you've got let's just go with the standard number that there's two a year per truck, and then now you're dealing with the Duraseal. And the idea is it can help, but if it doesn't, now you're dealing with a whole nother avenue of a repair process and replacing a tire, right? And training and levels. So,
and then I'm also thinking about the theoretical value of the casing, which the value of the casing is unique to each fleet. However they value it, could be worth $0, could be worth $120. But that Duraseal, if it can only be run through a Goodyear plant, then it has no value to any fleet that's running. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, trying to get 5 retreads out of their casing, right?
Yeah.
And maybe they've realized that another brand might provide them a better value. So
in a waste application, chances are you're dealing with a tire guy, a maintenance guy at a ground level who's actually physically mounting the tires.
yeah, absolutely.
That's got to be an advantage if you're dealing with somebody who has tire knowledge, who's actually servicing them, seeing wear patterns. How does that change your way to approach a fleet versus, say, a line haul fleet or another fleet that doesn't have a tire guy on the ground?
There's a bit of a common bond there, right? Like they understand some of the things I'm talking about, and I understand the things they've been through. So I guess I don't have to train them on as much of an understanding, but yeah, it's pretty interesting, and the trend is the waste guys are all trying to recruit from the tire industry. They're tire guys.
Yeah.
Not just training them from the ground up anymore. They'll get a tire company, send a tire guy in to help them out, and then they want to recruit that guy. So they're getting some pretty experienced guys across the board to try to maintain their business. So
enough said there.
yeah. Stop doing that, guys.
Well, What are waste fleets asking for that maybe the tire industry isn't providing now? I mean, it sounds pretty complex. I didn't expect us to spend a half an hour going through it and seeing all these different angles. But where is there an opportunity for tire dealers, manufacturers to improve for a waste fleet?
I think there's a couple of opportunities. There's been, a bunch of different options in tire pressure monitoring systems to help them out and understand.
Yeah.
Some of them haven't worked very well. There's ones that strap around the inside of the wheel. There's some on the valve stems. They've had errors, they've had issues, and they haven't quite given them the details they want, or the drivers don't report it anyway.
Yeah.
So they're looking for some new stuff in that, and there's some exciting options coming with that stuff. I think a new tire that's priced accordingly with a retread that could eliminate the need for retreading would be super exciting to fleets going down the road.
So let's delve into those a little bit. Playing devil's advocate on the air pressure side, they all come back to HQ every night.
Mm-hmm.
So the chances that they have air pressure issues got to be pretty limited, right?
Yeah. In theory, right?
Yeah.
In theory.
I say that. I mean, we have a small logistics fleet, and we run the Continental pressure sensors in them.
Yeah.
You can run those in whatever tire you want.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we still have pressure issues. We're still constantly chasing that. But I would just think with a waste fleet, you spend that kind of money on pressure sensors, it's hard to get the return.
Yeah, it is. And their problem and what's exciting about that Conti system you mentioned is for people in the office or in the maintenance department to have a visual of that, right? So they can essentially do something if they want, versus having a driver having to write it up on his log and turn that paper in and tell him that a tire might be low. The real problem isn't necessarily that the air pressures are slightly off and could cause fuel or wear issues.
Yeah.
The real problem is when they have a flat and want to know that they have a flat so they don't have an ERS event on the side of the road with a blowout when they're trying to collect the trash the next day. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So
air pressure, is that a major component when you're seeing a fleet getting 8,000 miles out of their steers versus 13,000? I mean, what are the key factors there between world-class fleet maintenance, 13,000 miles per steer versus plus versus 8?
I mean, it will absolutely have a factor in it, right? If they're running well underinflated, they're gonna flex that casing a lot more, and they're gonna wear that tire out faster.
Yeah.
So it absolutely has a lot to do with it. And maintaining proper air pressure is super important for those guys. They all have a pretty good understanding of where they need to be,
Sure.
right? So it absolutely affects it.
Yeah. And then certainly a new tire on the drive axle, I mean, that seems like a no-brainer to me. I mean, if you're saying that the best-in-class steer cannot run on the drive axle as well as a retread, and you're seeing that low of miles, there's opportunity for innovation there.
Yeah, there is, and innovations is that you hit the nail on the head, right? Because what we see now is in the waste industry, they make one tire, right? It's a tire that goes on the steer, and then it goes back to the drive, and it's typically the same exact tread design, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a new or a retread.
Yeah.
Across the board, they're not necessarily making something in a new tire specifically designed for the drive application that may provide longer wear. They want it to wear well on the steer and do a great job, and then cap good is the main focus of that tire.
Yeah, it seems like the hardest application in the whole truck.
Yeah.
Right? If you can solve wear issues or improve wear issues on a drive axle with anything, retread or new tire, or air pressure solution or what have you, that's where the major gains are going to be had.
Yeah. Yeah, and most of their focus and research has been on making that retread better to handle that position.
So you mentioned on another podcast, as we went through the data of one of the waste fleets, that $10,000 to $50,000 in savings is very accessible on a 50 to 70 truck fleet.
Absolutely.
Based on premium to poor maintenance. Do you see that increasing over time? I mean, do you see maintenance practices getting better, or you see them staying the same? How does your team evolve waste fleets going forward?
Right now I'm kind of seeing a little bit of a trend to, I can't say I see it getting better right now.
Yeah.
As companies are kind of pinching and trying to get tighter and save money. I feel like they're saving it in the wrong place by minimizing that preventative maintenance.
Yeah.
So I see the cost probably ticking up for them in their tire budgets in the near future. I think what we can do to help them is with the data team is as we get into more fleets and help and show them more data and help them understand what's going on with their fleet, they can actively make changes that are going to help them in the long run, right? We can go in and show that maintenance manager that, yes, you saved $30 an hour on having an extra tech out in your shop every day, but what it's costing you is X amount of more flats per month or irregular wear or so on and so forth, right? And truly having numbers is just an awesome thing. It's not just a salesman with a pitch, it's data-backed research.
Yeah. And you've heard me mention this on other podcasts that connecting those dots, and it's in all types of business. It's not just our business. It's as economic times change, CFOs, controllers, CEOs, any type of manager, they're looking at things on a line item by line item basis. I don't think we can really blame anybody for that. If you look at one line item and that has grown dramatically over the course of the last couple of years and your business hasn't grown, you're trying to reduce that. It's that correlation between my maintenance spend versus my ERS versus my fuel. And the same thing can be true in HR, right?
Yeah.
From people employment. Hey, I'm spending this on team events and we spent too much, let's cut it down, and then the turnover number increases.
Yeah.
So it's almost an accounting puzzle that needs to be solved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the best thing we can do is with our data team is provide them the data to help them solve that accounting puzzle.
Well, I'm certainly going to be asking you to solve that puzzle and see what we can do to improve waste going forward. This has been an incredibly exciting conversation. There just seems to be improvements to be had. This is one that the tire industry should be tackling full frontal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what we're working on doing right now.
Okay. Rob, any last words for our listeners out there?
No. Thanks for having me again. And I love sitting here talking about fleets. There's so much more we could dive into and take them on tangents that they're probably not even ready to hear. But
we'll do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Let's air this one up. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Joe.
Around the Bead podcast, tire talk for trucking, mining, agriculture, and more. Your home for fleet solutions, aiming to inform, pioneer, and entertain the tire world in connected industries. Sponsored by East Bay Tire, keeping essential industries moving forward.